Yeah, that's right. I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing.
We are live without the music playing.
Had their intro. We're live.
Oh, we live. Okay. All right. Hello, family. I'm not sure why the intro didn't play, but here we are. My name is Stephanie, aka Queen. Welcome to the Just Nickin' Weekly Show. I'm joined by Geoff from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports Blog. Be sure to check it out. The link is in the description. Really good work, Geoff. Tonight, we're going to talk about just a few storylines about the Knicks. The Ringer article with the 100 best players in the NBA. Jalen Brunson was ranked 9th. I believe Cat was ranked 18th. We'll talk about that. I'm more interested in that there were 4 point guards ahead of Jalen Brunson, and just your thoughts on that and the chat's thoughts on that as well. Cat is eligible for an extension. There hasn't been much talk about it, rightfully so, in my opinion, but I'm interested in what you have to say about it. For fun, we'll talk about CBS's 25 best players of the 21st century, and Carmelo Anthony was left off the list. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that. And whatever else comes up. Was it Ian Begley or someone else, whoever did the interview with Kolek, and just, Kolek just feeling hopeful that he'll get more of an opportunity this year under Mike Brown. I don't share his optimism, but I'm interested in what you in the chat, have to say about it. And then whatever else comes up, that's what we're going to discuss tonight. Geoff, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Salute to the chat. I'm so glad to be here. I'm always excited to talk about our Knickerbockers, and I'm ready to get going and have a great show as always.
Yeah. So and I'll put the link down in the description, but those in the chat and those who are listening, you can Google it. It's an article by The Ringer. So if you put in top 100 NBA players 2025, it should come up rather easily. I'm just going to read off the top 10. The Joker, Shea, Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis, Luka, Steph, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton the Joker was first, Shea, Gilgeous-Alexander was second, Giannis was third, Luka was fourth, Stephen Curry was fifth. Is he still the fifth best player in the league, or is that just like a legacy ranking? We'll talk about that. Anthony Edwards was sixth, Tyrese Halliburton seventh, Donovan Mitchell eighth, Jalen Brunson ninth, ahead of Jason Tatum at 10th. I was a little surprised about that. I know you're not, because you're not a big Celtic fan. I'll just run off the next 10 really quick. We're not going to really talk about 11 to 20, but it was interesting. Wemby was 11, LeBron was 12, Anthony Davis, Street Clothes, was 13th, Durant 14th, Kawhi Leonard, who's only played like 6 games in the past 10 years, is 15th, Cade Cunningham 16, Evan Mobley 17, Cat was 18, Booker was 19, and Jalen Williams from the Oklahoma City Thunder was 20. And I believe you have the list, right, Geoff?
Yeah.
Just your thoughts on let's just talk overall before we get into point guards. Your thoughts on the top 10 and where Brunson fits there.
Well, I think it's fair. I don't, these lists are so much about personal preference. I think that it can be, you know what I mean? Some people like a certain style player, because of this, and some, so everybody kind of views it differently. So and it's hard, at least to me, it's hard to compare a center to a point guard to a wing. They have different responsibilities, and to say that this position is more valuable on the court than the other, it's really, I have always been loath to compare across positions, but if you just want to talk about the point guards, I think that there's I think that's a more reasonable conversation because they do the same things and you're comparing apples to apples. Like, you know, except a player like the Joker who kind of does a little bit of everything except defense at a you know, an all world level. It's kind of like, but I don't think anybody's calling Joker a point guard, right? Like he's clearly a center. So
Right.
even though he's, one of the best assist men in the league, so, there are playmakers and that, and those sorts of things. But I'm very much more, if you're going to look at this kind of compare guards to guards, wings to wings, and big men to big men, I think that's the most fair way to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sorry, I'm just trying to. All right, that's probably the best I'm gonna get. Yeah, I agree with you, which is why my focus was really on the point guard position. So there were 4 point guards ahead of Jalen Brunson. Now, point guard nowadays is not what we would traditionally, right? We've had this conversation, many times. Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Magic Johnson, can go down, there's others that's escaping my, that's not where the league is. So, Shea is considered a point guard, Luka is considered a point guard, Steph is considered a point guard, and Steph, even though he doesn't pound the ball like Brunson, he plays off the ball a lot, right? His a lot of his shots is coming off of screens, but he's still considered a point guard. Um, Halliburton is a point guard in the truest sense, right? So we got Shea, we got Luka, we got Steph, we got Halliburton, and then Brunson fifth. I don't consider um, Donovan Mitchell was ranked eighth on this list. I don't consider him a point guard.
I don't
If
either.
you do, that would bring Brunson's ranking at the point guard position down to six. But I don't think, even though their games are similar, uh, their height is similar. He just plays off ball right now, right? So the four in front of him: Shea, Luka, Steph, Halliburton, then Brunson. Or is that how you would rank it as well?
Well, I think it depends on how you define the point guard position, right? And so, I see David Smith has got Trae Young up there, and I would say that Brunson's a better point guard than Trae Young because he's a lot more efficient. Young is a below 50% effective field goal shooter. Yes, he has more assists, better assist percentage. He's also turns the ball over a lot more. And so, when it comes to a player like Young, I think that Brunson is the superior point guard. When you're looking at Brunson, he's top 8 in the league in scoring and top 8 in the league in assists. People tend to forget about that. And he's a low turnover player as well. The
Tell him, Geoff.
the comparison between Halliburton and Brunson is fascinating. Obviously, Halliburton has had more head-to-head success in the playoffs, but Brunson's a much better scorer than Tyrese. Now, if you're just talking about straight assist to turnover ratio and assist percentages and turnover, low turnover, he does beat Jalen in all those aspects, and I'm not going to deny that. But one of them's like a 26-point a game scorer, and the other's an 18-point a game scorer. And even at that, Tyrese is extraordinarily inconsistent. He'll have a game where he has 4 points, and then he'll have a game where he'll go off for 35. Whereas Brunson is kind of like, he rarely has a low point production game. Like if he has a 20-point game, we're like, what's wrong with Jalen tonight, right? He's not in his bag or whatever the case may be. But, from that standpoint, I think I would put SGA ahead of him. I mean, SGA won the MVP, but again, he's a better assist guy than SGA. Their turnover percentage is similar. But, SGA was clearly a better scorer this year. And so, you have that. And I would put Luka ahead of him. He's more of a point forward than he is a point guard, but I mean, if I think you can put him in that class. I mean, he's a really good assist guy. But again, Brunson is more efficient from the field than he is, and so you kind of have that gray area in there too. But I would definitely say that I would put SGA and Luka ahead of him. If you wanted to argue a healthy Tyrese, I don't really have a problem with that. I think that I wouldn't, just because I think that he's a much better scorer than Halliburton, even if Halliburton is the better passer and and protects the ball a little bit better, not a lot better, but he does. You know, if you want to make the case for Halliburton, I'm willing to listen. Let's put it that way. But you know, anybody else, I don't think Cade is better yet. I think when Cade's 28, he'll be better than Jalen at 28, but I don't think he's there yet. He's not as efficient a scorer, and he turns the ball over at a much higher rate than Jalen does. And I think those are two key qualities in a point guard. I'm not a huge fan of Trae Young's game because of the inefficiency, but you know, again, he's really he really is underrated as far as his point guard. People just say he pounds the rock and all he does is, you know, but he does average a lot of assists, and he takes care of the ball really well too. So, you know, those are the guys. I mean, I wouldn't take James Harden over him. I wouldn't take Steph Curry over him at this point in his career. Now, if you're talking prime Steph Curry, okay, different argument, but you know, I kind of agree with Anthony D. I never really viewed Steph as a point guard. Like, he was a nominal point guard, but I always viewed him as a scorer, as a shooter. You know, and you know, Brunson can do both. You know, would we like him to do more as a passer? Maybe, but you know, the numbers say that he does a good job. So. You know, I wouldn't put him less than 4. I can guarantee you that. And, you know, he could be a top 5 point guard and a top 10 player in the league at the same time, because there's a lot of good point guards out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, Geoff. Yeah, this is tough. I mean, I think just from looking at the list and who's considered point guard, you can really see how the NBA has changed. Right? Just how the NBA has changed. Steph, Luka, even Shea, you know. I think I agree with you. I would have Shea and Luka. Again, these are, you know, non-traditional point guards. And then I would have Brunson. I think, you know, for those who have Halliburton ahead of Brunson, I'm not going to argue, right? Halliburton has went to the Eastern Conference Finals one year. He led his team to the NBA Finals another year. Like, that team is built around him and around his, you know, around his skill set as a distributor. Brunson is different, man. Brunson is different, and in my opinion, if you're gonna win a championship. And listen, you know, the Pacers may have an argument here. You got to have at least one guy, in my opinion, who can win a game, for you, and that's, you know, and that's Jalen Brunson. At the point guard position, again, you're gonna be down on him if you're thinking pass first. That's just not who he is. And I think you can be a really good point guard even if you're not pass first. Like, his scoring opens up opportunities for other guys on this team. And I think we underrate that. Now, if you want to say he has to do a better job with those opportunities, and maybe there are some shots that he takes that he could pass to someone who's open, I think that's fair. But to say that he's not a point guard, or to say that because he scores first, that doesn't make him a point guard in today's NBA, I'm not buying that. But yeah, I do think he does need to be better in some areas. And looking at the list, I would take Shea over him at the point guard position. I would take Luka over him at the point guard position. I agree with you. At this point in his career, I would not take Steph over Brunson. And I know there's some out there who think we're crazy, but that team is tailor-made for Steph Curry. Tailor-made for, you can't just take Steph and just drop him on this particular team and think everything is going to be the same. He's going to have more ball handling responsibilities than in Golden State for sure. And I think, you know, Halliburton is fair depending on the type of point guard you want. I like the idea of having a score first point guard who's the pressure that he puts on the defenses, how it opens up. Like I've seen pass first point guards in the past just work it at like to like a maestro, you know. And if you want to say that Brunson is not at the maestro level yet in terms of, you know, his decision making, I'm not gonna argue. But with that, you know, he can get better. But I personally would take Jalen Brunson over Tyrese Halliburton, and I'm not taking anything from him. He would be the third best point guard in the NBA in my opinion. Wow. Yeah, we'll get to the chat. And again, I think it depends on what you're looking for at that out of that point guard position. And I do think the team that you have constructed, you know, around that player makes a difference. Shout out to G Fresh. It's been a minute. Appreciate you appreciate you dropping in. Anything else, Geoff? Before, I mean, we'll talk about it a little more. I want to go to the chat. There's some interesting conversations in the chat I want to get to.
For sure. I think one of the things though that I like about Brunson at the one spot is how he elevates the level of the players that are around him, regardless of the cast of characters who are around him. Like 2 years ago, we had every injury known to man, and he still elevated the team to a second round of the playoffs team. Like, you know, this year he had a completely different cast of characters. What did he do? He took us to the Eastern Conference Finals, but the team has been a minimum second round playoff exit team his entire tenure in New York as the man who was running the show. And to me, that speaks volumes of what Brunson adds value-wise in comparison to Trae Young. Let's say Young had one excellent season, but again, he's much less efficient player. He's a much more high turnover-prone player, and I don't think he elevates the level of the players around him in the same way that Brunson does. That's just my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean he's not a good player. He's top in the league in assists every year. I mean, obviously, he can pass the ball, but that doesn't mean, like, if we have a player draft today, there's no way I'm taking Trae Young ahead of Jalen Brunson. If that makes me a homer or that makes me crazy, that's fine. But if SGA is out there, okay, I'm taking him. If Luke is out there, okay, I'm taking him. Other than that, you know, and for long term, maybe you look at Cade, but I don't think Cade is quite there yet. But he's getting there fast. Cunningham is really becoming a really good player.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on your criteria, right? Some fans may focus on skill set, and other fans may focus on results, right? So if you're looking at Trae Young, you may focus on the skill set. Oh, he's a good passer. This is what a point guard is supposed to do. He's supposed to, look for other people and pass. And so if that's your definition of a good point guard, you're going to look at Trae Young and be like, oh yeah, he's definitely better than Brunson. Look at his skill set. But it's more than that. It's about results. It's about the impact you make on the team, in my opinion. It's about getting players shots, and it can happen both ways. You create for them by not, scoring your pass first, or you're scoring first. Either way, you're creating opportunities for your teammate and elevating the team. It's going to be interesting to see what Trae Young does. Not to get on an Atlanta tangent, but that's been my criticism of Trae Young, is that he hasn't been able to elevate his team, other than that one year they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And maybe that's unfair. Maybe that's unfair. But I've seen players, Brunson who's one of them, where you look around and the team is not that great, but that player is that great, and he just elevates everyone around him and elevates the team. That's Jalen Brunson, right? So, in my opinion, Trae Young is not even in the conversation when it comes to point guards and Jalen Brunson. And to your point, maybe I'm a homer, right? Maybe I'm a homer too. But Trae Young is just not in that conversation. And I appreciate his skill set. And I want to get to a comment by Sherman. I appreciate you, Sherman, for showing up frequently. I should have. Okay, here we go. He said, I'm a Brunson guy. I'm taking a Shea, Cade, Halliburton, and LaMelo Ball ahead of Brunson. So this is, in my opinion, a conversation about skill set and results. Like, what has LaMelo Ball ever done to elevate Charlotte? Now, again, if you're just looking at his skill set, he is a very good passer. His scoring has gotten better. His shooting has gotten better. He has height, right? If you're just looking at his skill set, yeah. I mean, if you want to say that, he's more talented than Brunson and he has a better skill set than Brunson, but I think results matter. Like, what are you doing with your skill set? What are you doing with your talent to elevate the players around you? Now, in his defense, you can argue that how can you elevate those players? Like, he really hasn't had anybody around him to elevate. If you want to say that, I think I can argue a little bit, but I'm not. Again, I just think that how you elevate the talent around you matter, and I just haven't seen that from LaMelo Ball. I agree with you. I think Cade is on his way. At this particular point, I don't know. Results matter. Results matter. Halliburton, I'm not going to argue with you. I prefer Brunson, but I'm not going to argue about Halliburton. Again, Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals, he doesn't get hurt. They may win a chip.
And
right?
His assist to turnover ratio is ridiculous. He hardly ever turns the ball over. I mean, when you're talking about that dude, he is like, you want to talk about ball control, that dude has it. He's very good with his passes, and he doesn't make many mistakes. So, he's just not the volume scorer that Brunson is, and so it's personal preference there. And I prefer, a guy who gets a lot more, not just a little bit more. He scores a lot bigger volume than Tyrese does.
Right.
But if you're just talking passer, it's Tyrese.
Yeah. And listen, he doesn't get hurt. They may have a chip right now. They were up at halftime in the NBA Finals, right? Game 7. So, yeah. All right, let's get to some other comments. Shout out to Anthony D. Anthony D, I owe you a call back. Listen, if I don't call you back within 24 hours, call me again. You know my condition. G Fresh, only Luka and SGA were the only point guards ahead of him. That's fair. I mean, that's fair. Anthony D said if Brunson was 6'5", this is a silly conversation. You think it's just the height, AD? Like, do you not think that Brunson can get a little better at his decision making, a little better at that line between when do I score and when do I get others involved, that he could do just a little better in that regard? Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're on the same page, and I think he will. All right. This is Greg. Appreciate you, Greg, rocking with us. In my opinion, Trae Young makes his entire team better as a point guard, and Brunson only makes himself better. That's the difference. So pick who you want, a guy that elevates the team or just himself. I mean, this is my argument, Greg, and Geoff, you can comment also if you like. How has Trae Young elevated his entire team? The team barely makes the playoffs year after year after year. How is he elevating the team? Who's better because Trae Young is on the team? Jalen Brunson, before OG, before McHale, before Cat, when it was just him and Randall and whoever else we had around him, was making those players better. So I don't understand. What do you mean by elevation? Like, how are you gauging elevation? Are you gauging it by record? Are you gauging it by where they finish in the Eastern Conference seeding? Like, how are you gauging elevation? Because in my opinion, for all of Trae Young's stats, I mean, you can actually reverse the statement, in my opinion. For all of his stats and for all of his assists, where has the Atlanta Hawks gone? Nowhere. Nowhere. So I definitely disagree with that, respectfully. Geoff, any comments?
Look, Trae Young is a really good player, but I just don't like efficiency matters, and I don't think that just to say, well, he's got more, he has, he's twice as many assists per game, and it's not that, but I'm just using that as an example. He's also twice as many turnovers per game. So, are the turnovers more costly than the assists? And the thing about an assist, what does Ajay always say? The person you pass it to has to make the basket, right? And so, what did it look like when he played with Trey Murray? With Murray, DeJounte Murray, not Trey Murray. With DeJounte Murray, it didn't look really good, and that should have been a backcourt pairing that was really good together, and yet it completely flopped. I mean, so look, he's going to have a terrific team this year, so you want to, if this is going to be the season for him, then it's going to be it. But again, he's kind of a Chuck when it comes to his shot. He's a high shot, guy who doesn't, he doesn't shoot at a good percentage. He's not a great 3-point shooter, and he's even worse from two. I think his effective field goal percentage is typically under 50, which is really bad in the modern NBA, in my opinion, and that detracts from his overall game, in my opinion. So, I'm willing to die on the hill that Jalen Brunson is better than Trae Young. I would never, ever in a million years make that trade.
Right. And that Jalen Brunson only elevates himself. Look where the team has gone, right? If he was such a detractor, I don't think the team gets to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, if he's such a detractor, ball hogged, you understand? So I don't get that, Greg, but I appreciate you, of course. All right. Let's see. Let's get a few more. Halliburton, shout out to David Smith. Appreciate you, president of the Karl Anthony Towns fan club. Halliburton was the far superior point guard than Brunson in the Eastern Conference Finals. I hear you. Okay. All right. Somebody's talking about the if Trae Young were on if Trae Young were on the Knicks, he could easily average 15 assists per. And what does that mean? There's been times when Trae Young has averaged, 12 assists per. What does that mean? Again, it's the focus on the individual stat and not the focus on the result of the team. So what, he averages 15 assists per game. You don't get a championship because you average 15 assists per game. It's about the results. Trae Young is an inefficient player. he's not a good shooter either. Like people like he hits big shots, don't get me wrong, and I think that has a lot to do with the narrative that he's a great shooter, but he's not. You know? And again, I don't want this to be a
in the season that Trae Young scored 28.4 points per game, he shot 38% from three, the highest of his career, and 46% from 2-point range. But those are more outliers. He's never approached anything like that again in his career. So I can't really say that those are typical numbers. I think that's just he had a really good year. I mean, he hasn't really done it since. So, I think overall resume, I'm taking Brunson over Young all day long.
Yeah. And Anthony D. What would Brunson assist numbers be if Bridges and OG shot at a high clip? Yeah, I do think you have to look at potential assists, and you have to look at another one I like is passing rate, right? When it comes to evaluating point guards. All right. Oh, the Chief Rocker.
Yeah, let's go.
Crazy.
Salute my peoples. What's good, y'all?
We good. How are you?
Freezy, we do have a super chat, Queen. I thought you might want to get to that before we let the Chief Rocket get to his thing and let him cook. Where'd it go?
Uh-oh.
Hey, they're gonna be case.
Okay, my audio is going in and out. Welcome, Freezy. Yeah, welcome, Freezy. Just big up to Freezy Blanche Tears, one of my biggest supporters and friends who I'm gonna have the opportunity to meet in person in a few days. So I'm super excited about that. But Freezy, I'm pretty sure you've been listening. Just your thoughts on, Brunson being ranked in this Ringer article as the 5th best point guard. Do you agree or disagree? And just your take on how the point guard position has evolved in the NBA.
So I guess I got to do the first thing first. Miss Mocha was hovering. She was trying to say hey to you, but you ain't hear her.
But Freezy, you know where I'm at.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear you for like a minute when you came on.
Right. So Mo said hey, right? But
hey, looking forward to meeting you.
Yeah, and so the Jalen Brunson thing, y'all know, I feel like in terms of leadership, clutch moments, carrying your team, I think Jalen Brunson's the best player in the NBA in terms of responsibility, effectiveness, and things of that sort. I feel like he's not, in that top group. I think he's the guy. I think nobody does kind of more with more opposition than Jalen Brunson does, right? When you look at other guys that play point guard, you're like, hey, I don't know, is SGA really better than Brunson? I don't know. And now is he more productive? Is he the NBA champ? Of course. Like, you got to give him credit for what he does, right? But in my mind, Jalen Brunson shouldn't be ranked outside of top 5 in any projection, right? I think and to be honest, the whole Jalen Brunson is ranked outside of top 5, top 6 in anything still feels like clickbait to me, right? To get the Knicks fan base interested in a thing. Does that sound like I'm overarching or overreaching because I'm a fan of the Knicks? I don't think so, right? Because when you look at what he walked into 3 seasons ago versus where the Knicks are right now, I don't think you can make an argument that any other player has been more impactful for their franchise than Jalen Brunson. When Jalen Brunson walked in the door the year before that, our starting backcourt was Alec Burks and Evan Fournier, right? We were a team that missed the playoffs. right? And today we were a team with championship aspirations, knowing that we were, 2 games away from being in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
So, so in my heart, I believe Jalen Brunson. I'm not going to say he's the most talented player in the NBA, because there are people that are athletic freaks that also have the freaky skill. But if you're looking at merely, what this guy does versus what he had to work with, I don't know if you can rank Jalen Brunson outside of the top 2 point guards in the NBA, right? And I understand Luka is great, right? I understand Luka is great. Luka, though, Luka's played with great players, starting with Jalen Brunson, Kyrie Irving. Now it's LeBron James, right? And if you say, hey, listen, I can put a LeBron James type player next to Jalen Brunson, I have no doubt in my mind that the Knicks are the NBA champs, right? Now, that's me. Do I sound like a homer? I understand that I'm on, the #1, YouTube podcast in this space right now, you know what I'm saying, with BK stuff. I understand that. So I'm not pandering to the fan base. What I'm saying is as a Knicks fan, I've graduated from thinking that everybody is better than us and it's an uphill climb. I'm at the point now where I feel like we've done the separation part. We've gotten away from being a middle of the pack franchise organization. I think we're away from being the laughing stock, the woe is me, the henny penny, the chicken little of the NBA. Right now, I believe, just like most championship contenders in most seasons, that we have a legitimate shot to be the NBA champs, and that's because of Jalen Brunson's presence. So do I believe he's the 5th best point guard? No. Right? Because why? Because he doesn't dunk enough? That's ridiculous. We need our point guard. And a lot of us are corporate, working these corporate places. And even in our meetings, when somebody says, hey, we need somebody to be the point guard of this project, right? Point guard means something. And Jalen Brunson, just in that point guard meaning, the true meaning of it, being the leader, the finisher, all those things, I don't see a guy legitimately doing more with that than Jalen Brunson.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, Freezy, about doing more with less. Like we've been doing a lot of talking, or at least the chat, bringing up, Trae Young. I feel like Trae Young has had, teams that, now I'm not talking about this team with Cat, but, in years past, maybe equal to the talent that Brunson has had, like maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago. He's just not that guy, so it's not just about skill set, it's what you do with your talent and how you elevate those around you. And sometimes it's not always about the stats either. It's not always about the number of assists. How are you elevating those around you? It's not always about, the stats. And that's in Halliburton's defense too, right? Who doesn't score a lot, is not a volume scorer, but still elevates his team and elevates those around him.
Right.
Jason Benjamin, appreciate the super chat. What's our definition of a point guard? Brunson is a combo. Then what's Steph? What's Steph right now? What's Shea right now? Is Shea also a combo? Why are you a combo because you can score the ball? Was Stephon Marbury a combo? Or was he a scoring point guard? Is Dame Lillard a combo, or is he a scoring point guard?
In my opinion, in my opinion, we have to understand that as time moves on, the definition of things change, right? So is Jalen Brunson the point guard like Walt Clyde Frazier was a point guard in Walt Clyde Frazier's era, right? No, that was a different era of NBA basketball. Is Steph Curry, John Stockton, Jalen Brunson, a point guard in the John Stockton 90s decade type of way? No, they played a certain style, and point guards were asked to do certain things. In this era of NBA basketball, Jalen Brunson is absolutely a point guard. Absolutely a point guard, right? Just because we may have tuned into NBA basketball at a certain place, and that is where our learning and our love began. But over time, these things change and evolve as athletes get bigger, stronger, faster, and are fed more information when things come into play, like analytics, and not only analytics for shot percentages, but analytics on how to keep your body intact, and all this advanced information. In this era, Jalen Brunson is absolutely a point guard, right? Does he defend point guards? Not many point guards in this era defend other point guards, right? Does he average 10 assists per game? Most point guards in this era don't average 10 assists a game. That's not what they're asked to do, right? That's not what they're asked to do. In this era, point guards are asked to do other things different from maybe the point guard position and how it was played 10 years ago, definitely 20 years ago, definitely 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Yeah, 50 years ago, the point guard was asked to shoot last, get everyone involved. In this era of pace and space, the point guard is asked to look for mismatches, create them in order to get the best shot for himself and others. It's called gravity, right? That's what it is. We're in that era of gravity basketball where the point guard on a lot of nights is the most dangerous offensive player on the floor for either team. It happens for guys that don't play point guard. You know what they do? They ask you to go get them a point guard, right? If you're Giannis, right? If you're say a Giannis, if you're a Luka, right? If you're a Tatum, one of the first things you ask for is a modern point guard that does Jalen Brunson type stuff. Shoot a high percentage from three off the ball, score at will, keep the defense on his heels, close out games. If you're asking, that is what Jalen Brunson does. And for that reason, not only is Jalen Brunson a point guard, but he's an example of what the point guard position has morphed to in our modern NBA times.
Yeah, and that being said, Freezy, do you think, and Geoff as well, Geoff, you can go first, then Freezy. That being said, is there still room for him to grow as a point guard, particularly as we move toward winning this chip? And if so, what do you think is the next step for him in growing as a point guard? Geoff, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Geoff while I try to get this link for my guy. Let me see.
So
Go ahead.
I think there's a lot of room. I think that there's a big opportunity for him. I mean, you've got a player like Karl Anthony Towns. If he can let the offense flow and run through Cat a little bit more, I think if he doesn't reject those screens all the time, I think that's an opportunity for him to get more opportunities. I think, and maybe even just letting Towns run it from the top of the key on several possessions and just play off the ball and get open and those sorts of things. I think there's a lot of complementary basketball that the Knicks can play, and I think that Mike Brown should be able to unlock those things. In fact, I would argue if we're not unlocking those things, Mike Brown isn't doing the job that he's been brought here to do. So I definitely think that there's still meat on the bone. But Jalen Brunson's assist totals, I think, have raised every year he's been in New York. I don't see any reason why that trend wouldn't continue. And, I think that it's I think there's absolutely room to grow. But, that's just the best getting even better. That's not good going to great, even, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I want to add I'm a fangirl. So let me add this next guest. First time on Dope Soul Sports.
Hey,
Here we go.
let's
Hey,
go.
all right, all right, all right.
Let's go.
Good to be
How
here, man.
are you?
This is an honor. Let me tell you, I was a little bored in my apartment, hanging out with my dog and my kitties. I was like, let me pop on YouTube. And who did I see? Three of the sharpest basketball minds on these YouTube streets. And I said, you know what, dang it, tonight's a night that I finally vibe with my people. So I am very grateful and honored that you have me on the show tonight. And it's honestly an honor to be here with you three.
The honor
Yeah,
is
you
ours,
are.
man. We
Yeah,
love
man.
you from afar. We've been doing great content for a long time, kind of like this guy below me right here, Freezy.
Yeah,
So
man.
we appreciate you very much, and thank you for stopping by, hanging out with us.
I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
and
I've always wanted to tell you two this. And I've told Uncle Freezy this many times when he's been gracious enough to have me on his show. There is so much conjecture and hyperbole on its Twitter, on its YouTube, everywhere, right? People are looking for the hot take. To know basketball, to be able to communicate about basketball in a clear, concise way that really affects people's minds and hearts, you have to put in a lot of work to it. You either have to be a former player to have heard the play calling and done it in actualization on the court, or you've done a lot of studying, film, tape, watching decades and decades of hoops. This is one of the few channels that I think caters and does not pander to the basketball mind interested in learning more about the game. Not just the Knicks and whole, but your argument that both of you and Freezy have had tonight about what makes a point guard, what defines a point guard, what skill sets are important, looking beyond just the stat and looking at the impact. To me, that type of contextualization is what I've been looking for as a fan way before I found it at the time or anything involving Knick social media. And I'm so grateful that this channel exists because to me, this is the upper echelon. This is the very top of the iceberg for people who really want to know about ball and hear critical thinking about the game of basketball.
well,
Thank you.
I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate you on Nick of Time, but I gotta say, I'm really appreciating your writing. I'm really appreciating your writing, talking about context. Talking about context when you did the article on the NBA and bringing in gender and bringing in media, I'm like, okay, like this is some meat on the bone type of writing here, as opposed to just clickbait, right? So thank you for what you're doing in this space, but also what you're doing in the writing space. And you've been doing it for some time, from what I understand. But these last few articles I've been able to get my hands on have been great.
I very much appreciate that. For a decade, I wrote about contemporary art and culture and theory, and so to be able to find a home at Bleacher Report and the Guardian where I can use that knowledge and that reference point to cast a wider net on basketball and how it interconnects to social issues, the current political landscape, gender, race, to me has been very interesting. Class as well. And now I've been able to pull in some of my interest in poetry and theater and philosophy into writing about the WNBA and the NBA. The WNBA especially is a flashpoint that I think really needs context right now because it's become part of the American culture wars.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But on this topic, I'm interested to hear your take on the Ringer article. They named the top 100 players, but I was just focusing on the point guards that were named ahead of Brunson, and just your thoughts on that, how the point guard position has evolved, over time, and where do you think Brunson is in that regard?
Great question. I've actually appreciated and respected all three of y'all's answers on this topic. No surprise, I haven't vehemently disagreed with anyone. Everyone's been very balanced and very nuanced, so it's hard just to find something to get hyperbolic on. But I would say, and I dropped in the chat and I tweeted at you as well, that there's only three players. And I use players instead of point guard because all of you have been right. That term has become very malleable in how it's applied to lead guard. You can have a guard like Tyrese Halliburton that is not the focal point of attack in terms of playmaking for himself, but for others. And then you can have somebody like Fred VanVleet, who is undersized but uses strings to really get all of his shots off like a two guard. So it's very varied now what lead guard is. So thinking about how NBA.com, Basketball Reference, Wikipedia, and the general public categorize players, I would put the three best lead guards, in my opinion, is SGA, Luka Doncic, and Cade Cunningham. And I put Jalen Brunson right behind Cade Cunningham. And I understand if you want to impart playoff performance into the picture, Jalen Brunson clears them, even though Cade Cunningham was elite against us last year in the playoffs. I think Cade Cunningham has more skill, more ability, more potential, and better two-way impact than Jalen Brunson, even though Jalen Brunson's defense, particularly in transition, is underrated. I think he's become a better string navigator, too, in the last 2 seasons, and he's given great effort. He's not someone who doesn't try like Randall. He tries, and I appreciate him for that. But Cade is an elite defender, as I would say, is SGA, and Luka is such a gravitational force offensively that I think it's very hard to deny those three either being at the level of Jalen Brunson or above. So I would put Jalen Brunson 4th, but I would also say Brunson, to me, is the favorite to win MVP this season as well.
The MVP of the entire league?
Correct, yes. I think so.
Wow.
Because I think you have to have certain other signifiers to go along with that. Best record, best offense. I think the Knicks will have the best offense in the NBA, and I think we'll be a contender for top 3 records in the NBA as well. So those are the type of checks you have to have. And when you're looking at your resume of who's MVP, I think Luka and Anthony Edwards and Jalen Brunson are going to be the 3 top guys this year.
Yeah. So Anthony D, one of the, friends of the show, was just asking a question about Cade Cunningham and just not considering the playoffs. Because when we were talking about Halliburton, right? If we had, most of us had Brunson ahead of Halliburton. However, can't really argue if somebody put Halliburton over, Brunson because of his, playoff performance, elevating his team. And he was a big part of it. Like, he wasn't just riding a coattail. He was a big part of them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, and getting to the finals this past season. When you're doing your rankings, where does playoff performance goes? How much of it is skill set? How much of it is potential? I agree with you. I do think Cade Cunningham, depending on, so for me, performance is huge, right? So in a few years from now, if Cade Cunningham is elevating his team and they're moving to the Eastern Conference Finals and what have you, or doing the best with what he has, sometimes you just don't have the team to get there, right? But he's doing the best with what he's had. I don't think I can argue with putting him above Brunson. So just how much are you putting on skill set, talent, elevation of team, results?
I would say that the number one indicator to me, I agree with you, is playoff performance. How do you rise to the level when pressure's on the most in the postseason? And then after that, I would say two-way play. And then after that, I would say your ability to play no matter what pieces are around you. And Geoff pointed this out recently about SGA and Tyrese Halliburton, even Luka to a degree, is able to raise the quality of the players around him. Their floor, not necessarily their ceiling, but their floor. And Jalen Brunson has shown that ability too, but I would argue Cade has done it at an even higher level because the roster that is currently around Cade in Detroit does not play to his advantage. It's a lot of guys that are on ball, not off. You think about how Tobias Harris scores most efficiently. Tim Hardaway Jr. scores most efficiently. He's gone now, but now Karis LeVert, same way. It's very on ball, as well as Jaden Ivey, his backcourt mate, another very on ball player. So he's having to change his game and adjust space to the guys around him, lowering his effectiveness in becoming an off-ball player so that his teammates can thrive. If he had better spacing, better pacing, better shooting around him, maybe a big who can stretch the floor. He's playing without a stretch 5 right now. I mean, you look at Isaiah Stewart's numbers, like 38%, 37% from 3, but on what kind of attempts? The volume is very low. So he's really playing with a rim runner in Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart most of the time, which means the space around him is kind of clunky. Karis LeVert's an inconsistent shooter. They added him. Duncan Robinson, a very great catch and shoot shooter, but can't do very much on ball. So the roster around him, he's having to adjust to them rather than them adjust to him. So I give him a lot of points, especially in the playoffs when he really turned Jalen Duren into a great pick and roll player along with him in that PNR sets, and Beasley coming off those curls, and Cade was setting strings for his guys as well. So when I look at those details, he's a leader. He's great at reading the game. I think he knows when to impart himself offensively and when to be a playmaker, which is something that I actually don't think Halliburton has got very adept at. Neither has Trae Young. They struggle on when to be the guy that's going to be dropping 40 or when the guy needs to drop 14 assists. They do it, but it doesn't always impact winning. Cade does it at a level already where he impacts in only his first playoff postseason appearance.
Okay. Freezy, when you're doing your rankings, where and Geoff as well afterwards, how much are you putting on talent, skill set, elevating results?
I'm in the space of kind of like it when you see it, kind of just a little bit. The other thing, one of the other things too is when these players don't have the ball, how effective are they offensively? And so generally, like when I look at that, okay. So keeping in the stack, the Cade Cunningham part to me, I'm not there yet with Cade. I mean, you'd like for your perimeter players to be able to shoot, and not saying he's a bad shooter. He's definitely a good scorer. When he's hot, he's unstoppable. But the consistency of that outside shooting, from a guy that's gonna take a lot of shots, to me, it kind of has me in that. I appreciate the Cade Cunningham part, and I appreciate the SGA part, right? But the fact that they don't present that if they don't have the ball, they can spot up and knock down shots part, to me is one of the reasons why I have Jalen Brunson ahead on offense. Regardless what Jalen Brunson is, you have to pay attention to Jalen Brunson. You have to, right? Because if you say double Cat and leave Brunson open, Jalen Brunson may erupt for 50 if that's your 48-minute game plan, right? And so I understand the defensive part. The part that I think Jalen Brunson needs to improve defensively is the part that Knicks fans love. It's the part that I really dislike. The part that Jalen Brunson takes a lot of charges. In terms of a guy that's Jalen Brunson's stature, you really don't want to see Jalen Brunson getting off the floor 2, 3, 4 times a game due to collisions with another player. You don't want to risk it. At some point, there's going to be a time where Jalen Brunson doesn't get up, right? And I know that, and it's not I'm not fear mongering. It's not a scare tactic. It's when you depend so much on one player and understand what his gravity is, you don't want to risk it defensively there. What I'd like to see Jalen Brunson do more so than take charges is, and this is just to his deficiency. Like, he doesn't have the quickest feet to stay with guys his size, right? Most guys in the NBA are not going to be able to defend the other team's point guard one-on-one. Most guys, it's just not. Guys are just too good, right? But if we can get Jalen Brunson to be more away from the rim, guard the perimeter more, at least at an average level, I think we don't even have a conversation anymore. If Jalen Brunson can defend those guys. Now, the Luka thing, I understand Luka is probably the best offensive weapon in the league. His defense, though, is questionable. So Maverick fans say that he plays good defense sometimes. When you know how, so I just mentioned, it when you see it. Like, when I watched Luka play defense, I don't see the average NBA defender. I see a guy that plays defense at times, selective defense, right? I don't recall ever seeing Luka dialed in defensively like Jalen Brunson dials in defensively, but just may not have the ability to. If there's a want to that, and just in that space, I'm partial to. I like big point guards, right? I do. My preference is a big point of attack guard that can see over the top of exotic defenses and lengthy wing defenders picking up that defensive assignment that night, right? I would love Cade Cunningham. To me, is the ideal type, a big, strong, physical guard that can handle and can neutralize your exotic schemes with his stature. Jalen Brunson's not that, but Jalen Brunson does other things so well that it kind of raises the tide for this team. I know other guards do it in a way. I just don't see, for instance, I just don't see SGA being. If you swap places and Jalen Brunson was on OKC and SGA is here, I don't know if you get the same success, is what I'm saying. If SGA was the point guard of the Knicks, I don't see the Knicks being the NBA champs just because SGA is here.
Okay, that's a hot take that I have to disagree with.
If Jalen Brunson is on OKC, where they have a lot of guys that can stretch the floor, lengthy wing defenders, and a group of defenders that can cover up for the defense of the point guard, so to speak. Because I think Oklahoma City may have had either 1 or 2 ranked defense in the NBA, right? It's not because SGA is Gary Payton. It's because he's a good defender that gives a lot of effort.
Wow.
Right? If you swap places, I still think OKC wins the championship. SGA comes here. I don't think the Knicks are the champs. And I would almost say the same thing for Luka. If Jalen Brunson is on the Lakers and Luka Doncic is here with this group, I don't see the Knicks being better. And maybe that's because the organization built the team around Jalen Brunson and not those guys. That may be the main reason, right? But it when you see it. You watch Luka Doncic.
Construction matters.
Yeah, so you watch Luka Doncic on defense, and you know that there's a defensive question there, right? You watch SGA, SGA has a whole bunch of young guys that are built to win together, right? Like that team that's a great roster build. I'll just put it that way.
Some hot takes.
Yeah, I know.
I vehemently disagree with. Wait, I'll start off with what I agree with. You put Jalen Brunson on OKC this year, absolutely they win the championship. It might not even go 7 games just because of Brunson's closing ability. And I think he might be the best closing guard in the entire NBA, so even over SGA. But to say that if you put SGA on the Knicks, that they wouldn't be the same functionality or the same in game, definitely disagree. I mean, SGA he's a generational player. Already one of the best guards we've ever seen historically, the best downhill guard in the NBA history. You add that or his snake dribble into the mid-range pull-up, that's a shot and a shots diet that can win with anyone around him. And there's enough, in my opinion, defense on this team and shot making on this team to where I think this Knicks team could absolutely win a chip with SGA as the head of the snake. He gives you better defense. I think he's an elite defender, in my opinion, in the pick and roll, in transition, in half court, off the switch, PNR. I think there's nothing he can't do. I've seen him in pre-switch action early in the season when iHeart was getting cooked at the center position. They were getting him in to defend the rim. Like, they're not afraid to take chances and put guys in uncomfortable positions. And to me, SGA is one of those guys, along with Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson, that you can swap 1 for 1, apples to apple, and you probably end up with the same result. There are others who have parts of their game, whether it be leadership and the emotional side, or maybe they're missing a midi, or they're missing a push shot, or they're missing a 3, like an Anthony Edwards or a Tyrese Halliburton, that I would not say are the apples to apple swap ability. But Brunson, SGA, and Luka certainly are 3 of those.
Geoff, any thoughts on what's been said thus far?
Well, there aren't many players I would trade Jalen Brunson for, but SGA is one of them. I think that guy is phenomenal. No offense to Brunson. If you want to say Brunson has more of a clutch gene, okay, I'll buy that. But if you want to talk about as a two-way player, I think SGA is superior. He gets to the free throw line more. some would argue not because of what he did, but because of whatever. But he gets there a lot. He's a good defender, and to me, living in Texas, we get to see the Thunder quite a bit. And my son is a big basketball guy, and we often said until how is this team winning 68 games? Like, you look how good SGA is. He's the one that elevates that. He's the one who turns Jalen Williams into an all-star, in my opinion. I think if you put Jalen Williams on about 20 different teams in the NBA, he's not an all-star. But I think that if you play him next to SGA, I think he certainly becomes an all-star and becomes the second best player on a championship team. I don't think if you put Jalen Williams on the Knicks, he's the second best player on a championship team. Like, I wouldn't buy that argument at all. So from that standpoint, I'm saying that I would rather have SGA, and size wise, he has some advantages too. He's younger, those sorts of things. But and that's not meant as a knock on Brunson. I just think, SGA. He was the MVP. He led the league in scoring, I think, 32-7 a game or something ridiculous like that. And here's a guy who, defenses load up to stop him, and you just can't. Like, he's that good. I mean, and I don't, I'm not a huge SGA fan even. Like, I don't like the Thunder that much because I do have to watch them quite a bit, and and hear the noise from that side of the aisle. But yeah, that SGA is next level stuff, man. I really think he's incredible.
Geoff, you're in Texas?
Yeah.
What part? Me too.
I'm in West Texas, about 2.5 hours, 3 hours west of Dallas.
I'm in Dallas. We should link up sometime, buddy. That'd be rad.
Yeah, we should, for sure.
I know some articles be written about
to that point. The only right. The only thing I'll say about that, I don't listen. I think if you put SGA on this team, the Knicks have just as good a chance as winning as if you put Brunson on this team. I don't think that the Knicks would have a better chance with SGA. That's just me. But I'm not taking anything, from his game, either. I do think the Knicks can win a championship with Brunson on this team. I think they can win a championship with SGA on this team. And I also saw SGA struggle against the Indiana Pacers, just like I saw Brunson struggle against the Indiana Pacers. So, I wonder what Brunson would look like on a number one rated defensive team, But anyway, we gotta
I
move
think that part
on.
is
I have
coming,
another
Queen B. That's one part that's coming. That right there that you just mentioned is on the way. A top
number
rated
one defensive team.
Yep. That is on the
I
way.
mean, that's an entire show. There's another topic I wanna get to, but I will say this: if the Knicks finish in the top 10 defense, I don't. For me, I want the Knicks to lean into their offense. I don't think you bring Cat here to lean into defense. Now, you cannot be a bottom five team. I don't care what your offense is defensively and expect to win a championship. Like, you have to have some sort of defense, and you got to be able to also. And I think this is underrated. Timely shots. Shaquille O'Neal talks about this a lot. I forget what team he was on, and he said we weren't great defensively, but we knew when we needed a timely stop. That's what I meant to say. We were able to get it. To me, the Knicks defense need to be top half of the league. If the Knicks are 12 defensively with a top three offense, I'm feeling really comfortable. Freezy talking about number one or number two defense.
No, I'm not. I'm
The
not talking about
Knicks-
number one or two. I'm talking about number one.
Oh.
Man, you dropping some hot takes today, man.
I don't see that.
I'm a waffle iron, bro. I'm a
Nickies,
waffle
if you
iron in
could
my
be number
life.
12, I'm good.
I don't know enough about basketball to be able to wrap my head around how the Knicks could be even top five. with Cat and Brunson guarding the pick and roll. As long as those two are in the starting lineup, I just don't know what scheme to be put in place that could mitigate the defense and the pick and roll coverage between Cat and Brunson. Even if Deuce is a point of attack in that starting 2-guard spot, I just don't know how you move away and make up for the lack of defensive acumen and smarts from Karl-Anthony Towns.
And smarts. I have questions, and I've said this last season about Cat's defensive IQ schematically for a coach to be able to say, not this is what we're doing this game. He might be able to keep up with that. This is what we're doing this game for the entire game. But I mean, this is what we're doing now. Timeout. Okay, now we're going to switch to this. I need you to do this. Okay, cool. Now we're going to do this game. I don't really see Karl-Anthony Towns having that type of defensive acumen. Like, we could talk about, why he's not a good defensive player. Some of it is effort. Some of it, to me, I think is defensive IQ. Some of it might be lack of, mobility. I mean, there's multiple reasons, and it might be different reasons, for different games. Because you see him make good defensive plays, and you're like, well, why can't that be the standard?
It takes too much energy to be a two-way player. It just legitimately it takes too much energy to be an elite offensive player and a very good defensive player.
That's fair. That's fair.
It is, and so it's the same thing with Luka. Like, it takes too much energy for Luka to be the sun of a solar system, and then people also want him to be the moon that orbits around the planet. Nah, let Luka be the sun of his solar system, and then it's up to the GM and coach to figure out the other stuff. Because Luka is too great of a player to worry about his defensive lapses and such. And I think that's the same thing with Cat. If you think about how often you've seen a NBA 7-footer be in a top 3 or 4 in rebounding and in the top 10 in 3-point percentage, meanwhile scoring 20 plus points a game and playing 30 minutes. How often do you see that? And then, as a Knicks fan, you know this to be true because you appreciate seeing it every night. Then to say, oh yeah, and he doesn't play defense. What if Hakeem Olajuwon had to knock down threes every game? What if Hakeem Olajuwon had to shoot 40% from 3? You wouldn't see the elite defense because it takes too much energy to put into all these things and be great at these things.
So, Freezy, to your point then, because that's the same argument for Brunson too, right? To score and hold his own defensively. So to your point, how do you expect them to be the number one defense if you're even saying you can't expect Brunson and Cat to put out a lot on the defensive end? How are the Knicks going to be a number one defense then?
I'm glad you asked. That, right? How the Knicks go from being a meandering defense under Tom Thibodeau, playing in a system that may not have put players in the best spots defensively over the course of a 5-year stretch to the number one defense is playing different schemes, right? And I know what people are going to say, like, you can't do it just all on scheme. I know that. I know it's going to take some effort from Brunson and Cat, right? But if you understand that by not smashing Mikal Bridges through 60 screens per night, 80 screens per night, and let him defend other wing players as opposed to having him defend other undersized guards, right? And having him run the floor all night, and then wonder why his shot's not going. You can move him to the wing where he is a very effective wing defender. That's what he's known for, is being a wing defender. And by adding a defender to defend the point of attack, you actually need 2 or 3 of those. You actually need 2 or 3 Deuce McBride types to defend the point of attack, right? And then that way, OG Bridges can contest passes all around the floor. With that, and when you take Karl-Anthony Towns out of the game and bring in Mitchell Robinson, I don't see a world where all 4 of those guys are going to deuce OG, Bridges, and Mitch are going to play at the same time through a 48-minute stretch. but they will play at the end of games when you need, these defensive stops. And I think Mike Brown is going to take advantage of that. So just by schematically changing up the looks of your defense, right? Like other teams legitimately get the ball, push the pace up the floor. We have odd matches in transition. Now they don't have to run screen and roll because in transition, we didn't get a chance to find the guy that we're supposed to be guarding in the half court. They're pushing the pace. Now we have guys out of position and then they can attack the basket. When you get a point of attack defender to slow their ball down so that you can set your defense to face the plays that they want to play. Now they have to run these predictable offensive plays because they're playing against a set defense, which gives our defense the opportunity to make plays on defense and rebound the basketball. If you notice our great defensive plays in the playoffs, teams ran against our set defenses and they were not effective. Y'all remember Jason Tatum getting his shot blocked. Y'all remember what the defense looked like against a set defense in the Celtics series, right? The only thing is we never get to that point because the prior regime, coaches, whatever, had a different type philosophy. The other team gets the ball and run it up the floor, and now you have Josh Hart guarding Porzingis, right? And then you want to switch it. You want to get Josh off of him, but the other big is on the other side of the floor in another mismatch where he might be guarding a guard. Instead of us doing that naturally in transition on our way getting back up the floor, now you put pressure on the ball, slow them down, right? Guys get who they're supposed to get. And then now the team, instead, they don't have organic mismatches. Now they have to run plays to create mismatches. And that's where we improve, by just applying pressure to the ball and having our wing players guard wing players, as opposed to having our wing players guard guards and then have our bigs in mismatches guarding guys smaller, seeing Cat guard Jason Tatum out there for three, or Mitch guarding Jason Tatum out there for three. And quite frankly, I don't mind seeing Mitch in limited action guard Tatum. But I think that's where we start the improvement.
So improvement, yes.
Yeah.
I hear you. In my opinion, and I hope this team proves me wrong. I can't imagine, and I'm with Lee. I don't know that much about basketball schematically. I don't know what scheme you're going to be able to run consistently with Jalen Brunson and Cat on the floor that will make you the number one. I don't care if the Knicks are set. If the other team has 97 possessions and the Knicks are set back and set up for every possession, I still don't see this team with those two guys who must overlap on the floor. Like they were better in the playoffs, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when one of them was on the floor, the other one is on the bench defensively. But you can't do that. You can't play them 24 minutes apiece. They're going to have to overlap significantly for our offense to be top three, right? They're going to need to be on the floor together. I just don't see this team being even top. I wouldn't be shocked if they were top 10. I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked. But top 5,
10?
number 1, I would be floored. I would be absolutely floored if we had a top 5 defense. Floored.
Geoff, get the drinks ready. So when we pick Queen up off the floor, make sure you have an ice cold drink ready for her. When we get her off the floor, bro. Be ready. Preparation is
Geoff,
everything.
do you see it? Fan, do you see the Knicks with a top 5 defense? Jeff, do you see the Knicks with a top 5 defense?
I don't want to pour cold water on Freezy. He's our guest, and I love him, and he's got great opinions. But there are 2 reasons why I don't think that the Knicks will be that good defensively. The first is that in order to hide the deficiencies of Brunson and Cat, you have to play more zone. And the other problem that I see is a lack of quality rebounding. Cat is a very good rebounder, and Josh Hart is our second best rebounder. Josh is probably going to be losing some minutes just based on, the construction of the roster, and that's how you finalize possessions defensively, is you get the rebound. And when you play zone, rebounding becomes even more difficult. So I'm not sure that we have the rebounding chops to be an elite defense. Certainly not from all 5 spots on the floor. You know, I think, but I don't think we need to be that. Like, I think lean into the offense, try and be a top 12 to 15 defense, and I think that's a formula that can win. But I don't. I will be right there on the floor with Queen if we're top. Freezy,
Lee, get the drinks ready, man. Make it a double. make it a double. Right? We got to get 2 drinks ready.
I think being the number 1 defense in the NBA is an impossible feat for this Knicks squad, bearing any big trade. It's different to be a number 1 defense now than it was even 15 years ago. 15 years ago, even if you were set on most possessions, transition was ran less, getting up and down the floor quickly was less of a happening. And drop coverage was really defending the rim and forcing tough mid-range shots was the modus operandi for most defenses, including the one that Tom Thibodeau was still trying to employ in 2025. Nowadays, the methodology of being the number 1 defense is switching everything. And I don't think we have the personnel a la OKC Thunder or even Indiana Pacers who had the capability of becoming a better defensive team in the postseason, because 1 through 5 to switch everything. They no longer can do that with Geoff instead of Turner. But when Turner was at the 5 or Siakam is a small ball 5, you can switch everything. And no matter what look you're getting someone 6 or taller on you off of that ball screen. The Knicks don't have that personnel. Karl Anthony Towns, no matter what scheme that you try to play, if you're set, he's going to get in the drop and he's going to be confusing coverages. If you switch, he's going to get on mismatch and he's going to get cooked. So as Queen said, and I said earlier, and that's why I hinted at Deuce Bride being that new 2 guard, I think that's where Mike Brown is going to go. Is Deuce is a 2, Mikal is a 3. Because I agree with you, Freezy. Having Mikal guard wings and not ball handlers is crucial to us becoming a better defensive unit. And OG at the 4 and Cat at the 5 then leans into Jeff's criticism, which is OG's a weak deep rebounder at the 4 position. I don't think we have a culmination of what OKC had, who was J-Dub at the 4, Dort giving you strong rebounding at the 2, Caruso giving you strong rebounding at the 3, Chet or iHeart being an excellent offensive rebounding big at the 5, and SGA being a triple-double threat. But Brunson's not even the rebounder SGA is. I don't think 1, 2, or 3 defense in the NBA is possible at all. Top 10 to me is my hope. As Queen said, I hope we get top 10. I think top 12 is likely. I think every champion that's ever won the NBA chip in modernity since, I believe, 2000 has been a top 10 defensive team. So we can hit that metric, then we have a chance to win the NBA championship. But top 3, we just don't have the personnel. And you have to remember the bench, too. The bench is weak defensively as well. Jordan Clarkson cannot guard the point of attack. Josh Hart was getting cooked and appeared to have lost a step defensively last year. Who does that leave? Yabusele is a solid team defender, but he can get cooked one-on-one as well. He's not a super strong defender. And then you have Mitch. Mitch has now made up for 4 other guys, plus Karl Anthony Towns and a 2-bid lineup. That's too much on 1 dude or 2 dudes or 3 dudes to be top 3. Top 10, very plausible. Top 3, I think you're dreaming, Freezy. I think you might be dreaming.
Hey, Lee, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I know, bro. It's not as simple as what you saw with another guy is indicative what you'll see with the new guy. Like for instance, we speak about OG Anunoby's rebounding, right? OG Anunoby's rebounding dipped as a Knick, but as a Raptor, his rebound is in that 5 to 6 range, somewhere in there, right? And when you ask a guy that is a defender that's contesting shots to also rebound, you can't be in the same place. You can't defend the shot and then cover 18 feet through traffic and also rebound, right? It's the same thing.
Freezy, how come other players are able to do it? Or other teams are able to do it? Like, that's to me that for OG, he's out there defending, so how he can't. Other teams are doing it. Other players on other teams are doing it. They're out there defending the wing and also rebounding. He was never a strong rebounder, in my opinion. Okay, it dipped. It got a little worse with the Knicks.
Right.
I'm just not buying that he's out there just defending all of the wings, and that's why he can't get a rebound. Point guards averaging more rebounds than him.
But okay, so even with that, so what part of that did I say was not true? That OG Anunoby is not a good defender and contest shots, or the part that
Or
he
that
averaged
he, but that
5
because of
Yeah,
that,
right
that's
there.
why he's not a good rebounder.
Right. See, that's what I'm saying. I mean, okay, maybe I'm lost. Maybe I'm lost on that. Like the part where OG is a borderline all NBA defensive player that does get the one of the toughest defensive assignments every night.
I don't think you're lost on
I'm
that.
not. I don't disagree
Okay.
with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
To
I
me,
think we
that's
all
just
agree
not
on
an
that.
excuse for being a poor rebounder. That's
Agreed.
all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he's, for a power forward, to me, he's a below average rebounder. Even if 5 or 6 was career high in Toronto, that to me is mediocre for a 4. Now, if you're playing a 3, it's an excellent rebounder. But I don't think naturally at the 4, which I think is a position Mike Brown is going to start him in. If you think about how he utilized Keegan Murray in Sacramento, I think OG is going to be at the 4. And if he gives you 5 or 6 rebounds, that to me is underwhelming at the 4, combined with Mikal Bridges not being a strong rebounder and Brunson and McBride not being strong rebounders. I think about it collectively. That's a lot of pressure on Karl Anthony Towns to give you all of those boards, which means he might miss an assignment defensively, trying to go for the rebound, crashing the boards, and then his man somehow scores on him on an offensive board or a putback or a cut. I think about it as a consolidated defense, not just the Karl Anthony Towns is better in this position or better when he's set or better in transition. Collectively, there's too many weaknesses in that starting 5 for us to be top 3 defensively.
And if you can't close out a possession, and that's what's going to happen if Karl Anthony Towns. See, that's the thing. You put Deuce McBride in, it does help in some areas. It hurts in other areas. You keep Josh Hart there. It helps in some areas. It hurts in other areas. You start the double big. It helps in some areas. It hurts the pace and speed. So this roster, the way it's constructed, is not ideal, and that's going to be the challenge for Mike Brown. But we're going to be great offensively. If Deuce starts, we're going to be 5 out. But if you can't close out a possession because teams are getting offensive rebounds, right? I mean, that's part of defense too.
I have a feeling that we're going to see a higher rate of switching this upcoming season under Mike Brown than we did under Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
And to me, I saw in the playoffs. Freezy's right. There were moments in the Boston Celtics series where our defense was set and Karl Anthony Towns made decent decision-making in pick and roll to where he got us enough stops to win the series. Major kudos to Towns. That's, to me, gave me some optimism. I thought we were at their best, both against Detroit and Indiana when we switched 1 through 5. Now, that you're putting yourself in a position now where it's better for Towns to be at the 5, Mitch to be off the bench, and Deuce McBride to be at the starting 2, but you're giving up size. As Queen said, now you have an undersized 6'1" backcourt. Now you have Mikal Bridges as an undersized 3, OG is an undersized 4, and Karl Anthony Towns is a non-lateral movement 5. You're giving up a mismatch against the really elite teams in the NBA. I'm not saying that can't make us a better defensive team, because I think switching will, but can it make us a top 3 or a number 1 defensive team? I don't think it's possible in any realm of alternate universes that could possibly play out.
See, that's where I disagree with you guys, because I understand the switching part, and I understand the stressing about historically bad defenders being in a top-rated defense, right? But one of the things we faced was not the lack of switching. The lack of switching was maddening. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's frustrating to watch the lack of switching in today's NBA. But when you switch, on the backside of that, you also have to have this thing called recovery, right? Like when you switch here, and you get the matchup you want here, you also have to protect the other side. It's like the fitted sheet theory. Y'all know how like you make the bed and you pull the corner on one side and then the other side pops off. You have to walk to the other side and then put that side on, and then the other side that's adjacent pops off, and then you just sleep on a bed with no sheets after a while. My thing is with this defense, with the defense, I think the part that we're missing is if we switch here and put the emphasis at that point of the defense, the side that's recovering has less defensive responsibility, right? Like when you say, for instance, they run a random ghost screen and then you get Bridges on SGA or something, right? Now OG is on J-Dub, right? And now you have, say, Cat guarding whoever is within the vicinity of the rim or whatever. Is that not where you want Karl Anthony Towns to be? In a space where he's comfortable, where he has to cover less space and just be big, versus that switch happening and Cat is on SGA in the matchup that you don't want. And now you have OG Anunoby away from the ball, looking to play center field in passing lanes where he's guarding the box to the corner to the wing in that huge triangle that's formed where one guy has to be responsible for that entire space, and an offense that swing will hit the open man because OG Anunoby has to make up his mind to guard one of those guys in a split second, right? When you have the switching out front, right, that's the matchup that you want defensively. You want Bridges or Pacom Dadier or OG Anunoby or Deuce McBride or some level of moderate defensive acumen at that point, and you want Jalen Brunson to be in an area with less defensive responsibility, right, to guard a smaller area, and before they can pass that ball to the Brunson Cat mismatch, the defense recovers in order to protect those guys defensively. These are the things that I'm talking about. This is why I feel like the Knicks can be a top 10 defense. Number one, maybe a little aspirational, man. And who knows? I'm a Knicks fan, right? I'd be OD with the Knicks, right? But I think just off that alone, just that off the switching and communication and recovery, the Knicks wake up tomorrow as a top 10 defense, because most teams don't have the defense of a Mitchell Robinson, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Deuce on their roster. The Knicks have that on their roster. They don't have to search for it, right? They have it already, right? They have that, right? In their
They have it,
rotation.
Freezy, but the lineups matter, though. The lineups matter. You know, you understand what I'm saying? Because some of those guys are really good defensively, but they're not good offensively, right? So if you put this defensive team in, now your offense is suffering. Like, this is the thing about putting on one side of the bed, the sheet on one side of the bed, and then the other side is a little. I mean, listen, Mike Brown, has his work cut out for him, in my opinion, defensively. But if you're saying the Knicks are going to have a top 10 defense, I'm not as, I think they're going to have to work for that to happen. Is it possible? Yeah. You tell me the Knicks are top 5 defense. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But, top 10, if everything breaks right schematically and, then yeah. I mean, I do think that's
I'm just
possible.
asking us to look at, I'm just asking everyone to look at, and I'm talking to the chat too, like, don't just look at what happens when your TV screen is focused on the opposing team's ball handler. There are things happening away from that on defense, right? You see Josh Hart, the reason why Josh Hart can rebound is because Tibbs had him play that box and baseline, that triangle that I mentioned. It's the reason why Josh Hart can rebound at a high rate, because he's not on the ball and he's not a second level defender. He's a recovery defender. If you notice, when teams make shots, you know who the guy is under the rim pulling the ball out of the net? It's either Jalen Brunson or Josh Hart, right? Because they don't play at those top two levels, right? They each get a box guy that come through there. They'll be in man, but depending on the offensive potency of the team, they won't travel with the man. They'll pass the man off to whoever is on the other side. And that's why we have these lapses of when a team gets into the paint, they're worried about Cat not being a shot blocker. They pinch in from that box to help when they're only 6'4" and 6'2" respectively, looking to contest a shot. And then you get wide open shots in the corner, and you're like, how come the Knicks can't defend the three-pointer? But when you slide everybody down a spot, maybe add a primary point of attack defender, say it's Deuce. I'm using Deuce for an example. I don't think he'll be there. But say it's Deuce McBride. now you don't have these things where you need to put guys in certain spots on the floor because these guys can travel. Bridges can travel, OG can travel with his man, and whoever else is on the floor can travel with their guy. These are things like the
Yeah.
small nuance stuff. Like we've seen a system for so long. I think we think that this is all that these elite athletes can do. And I'm here to tell you that elite athletes can do anything you want them to do.
But that's
If
not
you
what
give,
we're saying, Freezy.
Right.
okay.
I don't think we're saying that schematics can't help. Like, I don't think anybody is saying like the way Tom Thibodeau did is the only way that can do it. This team has no hope. I think we all understand that schematics can make a difference. The different lineups you put in
Right.
can make a difference. I'm not disagreeing with that. I don't care what the scheme is. You're still not going to get me to believe that the Knicks are going to be a top 1 or top 5 defensive team, regardless of the schematics. And then what I will say, sure, if you want to say that part of Josh Hart's rebounding was where he was playing, fine. But he's no matter what scheme, I'm pretty sure I'll put it this way because I haven't studied every scheme he was in since he's been in the league, but he's been an above average defender across, I mean, defender rebounder across multiple
Right.
schemes. So yeah, maybe playing the back line closer to the basket helps him, but he has a reputation of being someone who can rebound, who flies in for rebounds, basically can rebound out of, out of position.
Right.
That's just a skill that um
But that's why Tibbs
that
put
he
him there
has.
because he's great at that. He's born to do that. What you just mentioned.
Right. But what I'm saying is he hasn't always played on a Thibodeau team, and he's always been an above average um
Rebound.
rebounder,
Right.
and I'm sure he's played in schemes where that wasn't just his role playing the back line of the defense. Um, Everybody want to take shots at my guy. You know what I mean? Josh Hart is he does his thing. They're gonna put him in the right role for him. You take anybody and you overextend them, they're gonna fray at the edges. You know what I mean? You put them in their right role, knowing what they're supposed to do, use them the way you're supposed to use them, you're gonna get the best out of them. And Josh Hart, even though he was overextended, in my opinion, had a career year last year. I think it's gonna be even better once his minutes goes down and his role is contained. He's gonna have a great year, in my opinion. Um, what time is it? Oh, it's 10. I was like, we're gonna have this show for an hour. you know,
My bad.
No, not at
yeah.
all. We love it. We love having extra special guest stars on the show. This has been a great conversation so far.
I just have one question that we've talked about, and I'm interested to hear Lee and Uncle Freezy's position, and then we can get out of here. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I forget now. But Kolek did an interview. I don't know if it was with Ian Begley or with someone else, where he's pretty hopeful that he'll have an expanded role this upcoming season under Mike Brown. I guess my question to you two and Geoff, I already know your answer, but you can weigh in as well. How hopeful are you that that will be the case? And this is a two-part question. Do you think it's needed in the sense that the Knicks do not have a floor general behind behind Brunson? It sounds like it looks like they're gonna go with McBride and Clarkson, both guys who can bring the ball, up the court, pass, shoot, but not really floor generals. Do you think the Knicks need a floor general? Do you think Kolek is that guy? And do you think he will get an expanded role as a second year player on a team that has championship aspirations? I think that matters, right? I think where the team is and what they're trying to do, I think that matters. Lee, we'll start with you.
Hell no on every account. I'm off the Tyler Kolek, whatever it was. He's a good kid, high basketball IQ, really tries. I think the defensive abilities, I think he gives effort. like Brunson, which I appreciate, but the deficiencies are clear. I do not think we need a backup playmaker because I think the offense is going to be funneled a lot through Mikal Bridges this season, being more on ball. And I think you're going to see Karl Anthony Towns act as a dribble handoff hub on the perimeter, running the offense through him, as well having Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns make those quick decisions and get the ball out of Brunson's hands. I think that's going to allow Jordan Clarkson and Deuce McBride to also be on ball, Shamet as well, and have their moments to either go ISO and take advantage of a mismatch switch or set someone else up for a cut or a lob. I don't think you're going to see the traditional Tom Thibodeau rotation and roles from last year. And Tyler Kolek, if we were going to fill that role, Tyler Kolek's not it, because now you're adding another defensively challenged weak spot into the rotation that, to me, compromises it beyond repair at that point. Kolek can't even guard G League, Summer League players, much less anyone in the playoff capacity that's a part of a postseason 9-man rotation is going to look at him like barbecue chicken. To me, I think Tyler Kolek is going to eventually, before his tenure ends, used as a salary dump to free up a roster spot for a veteran signing. If someone either becomes available right now, as in Ben Simmons says, I want you, New York Knicks, then we sign Ben Simmons, we salary dump Tyler Kolek, we sign Landry Shamet. If that doesn't happen, middle of the season, someone gets waived. Say Drew Holiday's like, get me the hell out of here. Portland buys him out. He's a free agent. Tyler Kolek is salary dumped. Maybe back to Portland, where we got him from initially, and then we signed Drew Holiday. I think that's the end game for Tyler Kolek. I absolutely don't think that he is a rotational player for any contender currently in the NBA because of his deficiencies on defense and his inability to get his shot off against high-pressure, switchable defenses. I saw it in the Summer League. He is very stoppable. And when a three-point shot is not hitting at 42, 44% clip, he is a liability on both ends of the ball. To me, I'd rather see someone like Deuce McBride get a higher usage role and be given more responsibility than it stay in the rotation simply to satisfy Tyler Kolek's career, his agent, and his mama. To me, I'm look forward to the day where that roster spot is utilized for someone who can help us in the postseason, opposed to someone who has a flock of Karens calling for him to play NBA minutes.
Yeah. Wow. Great point. Freezy?
Same. I mean, I'm with Lee. I don't have anything, additional. The only thing. The only thing is the Deuce part, like the Tyler Kolek part. I'm glad he's confident in himself, and maybe they found a flaw in his game away from what we see to make him that confident. But based on what we saw, Lee's absolutely right. Right? The Deuce McBride part. I'm a little nervous because I think maybe the door is cracked for Tyler Kolek because Deuce had a career high or a career year in terms of role, like what he's asked to do. Remember, Jalen Brunson missed all those games. Deuce McBride stepped in. He was asked to do a lot of stuff. And even when Deuce was the point guard, we found that Mikal Bridges is the better playmaking guard when Jalen Brunson was out, right? My thing is, if the Knicks know that maybe Deuce is not that guy, then maybe the door is cracked open for Tyler Kolek a little bit based on him. But if you can't beat G League pressure and you can't knock down the three on those wide open looks during Summer League, man. And we were praying for those threes to go in for him because a lot of us were rooting for Tyler Kolek, right? Rooting for him. But I don't see that, and I don't. And the point that sticks out to me the most is I don't see a world where Tyler Kolek plays over Ariel Hukporti or Pakham Dadier, right? Because if you're talking about adding another person to the rotation, because you have 9 now. Say if Josh, Mitch, Clarkson, and Yabusele are off the bench, that's 4 guys off the bench, right? So if you add a 5th guy to that, say in a 10-man rotation, is Tyler Kolek better than Pakham Dadier or Ariel Hukporti? And if he is, the question is less about Tyler Kolek. Now the question goes to, what are we doing with Pakham Dadier? What are we doing with Ariel Hukporti? Why are these guys not progressing at the speed that we want? So, the Tyler Kolek thing, I would hate to see Tyler Kolek go because I get attached to Knicks draft picks. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm saying it's a character flaw. Every time the Knicks draft somebody, I want that player to be the GOAT. Right? That's just me. Right? That's just me. But Tyler Kolek hadn't shown that he is a guy that can be the lead guard. Can he be complimentary? No, because he can't shoot. Right? So even if you play him off the ball, does his shot go? His shot doesn't go. And even if he plays off the ball, most NBA teams' sixth man is a walking bucket. Can Tyler Kolek guard walking buckets off of somebody else's bench? Because we know Clarkson's not going to do it. Josh Hart's not going to do it. So, I really appreciate the confidence, and I'm really rooting for him, man. Because I'm in essence, I'm rooting for the front office to hit home runs at every transaction. But as somebody that's been around the game for ever, I know every transaction you make is not going to be a home run. So
Yeah, for sure. Jeff, well, I will say this. I know Freezy has us at a top. He dialed it back. Top 10 defense. I will say this. There is a world in which Hart and Clarkson's defense, they haven't been great. Doesn't mean that they don't have that ability to be a bit better next year. So I expect those guys to be better defensively next year. I don't think that's as hot a take as the Knicks having the number one defense, but I do expect those guys to be better next year. Jeff,
Well,
thoughts on?
to me, I like Tyler Kolek. I've rooted for the kid, but I'm resigned to the fact that Jordan Clarkson is our backup point guard. To me, that's the thing that makes the most sense with where the roster is right now. I don't think that there's anybody out there on the free agent market who the Knicks are going to get to fill that slot. I think it's Clarkson's, and Deuce is going to have some secondary playmaking, and I think maybe even Mikal Bridges with that second unit is going to be relied on a little bit more, because we saw him do that in Brooklyn, right? It's not like Mikal has never taken on those responsibilities before, and with, just how the team is constructed right now, I think you're going to find, they're going to have to do some things rotation wise that are going to be a little bit different from what we're used to. But I'm just kind of resigned that unless there's a consolidation trade of some sort, it's going to be JC as the backup PG.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I think it depends. I don't. Yeah. We'll see. I'm interested. I'll be locked in preseason to see what I can glean from those 4 games that the Knicks play. But to Lee's point, it's possible that the Knicks feel like they don't need a traditional floor general, because of the offense that they're going to play, that it's not going to be dependent on one person kind of bringing it up, initiating the sets. That's the way they're going to have to go. Again, if it's McBride and Clarkson as the guards, to your point, Jeff, maybe not McBride, Bridges gets an opportunity to be the secondary ball handler. I thought that was going to be his role when he came here. And listen, when Brunson was out, I think he averaged like either 4 or 4.5 assists, so he can create, for others. I'm really looking to see how Mikal Bridges' role changes this season. Anything else? Any like last words or anything else you guys want to just real quick. FanDuel have the Knicks over under at 53.5. Just really quick. Over, Freezy?
Yeah.
Over. Jeff?
Under.
I'm going to say over. I have the Knicks 54 to 56. So I do think they're going to take They have a favorable schedule the first, I don't know, 20 some more games, but also at a time when they're going to be learning a new system. So they're going to really have to hit the ground running because they have two stretches, at least two stretches in this season that are really, really tough. But I'm still taking the over 54 to 56 games.
I got an ending thing if you want to hear something scorching hot and interesting.
You mean something else? Scorching hot.
Of course, of course, of course. You know, I'm like a Super Mario game. You never know what you're gonna get, right? I think it's make or break for Deuce. Right. Last year, Deuce in an increased role shot about 40% from the floor. He shot about 37% from three. And though some misleading analytic things show like plus minus, the Knicks are better with Deuce on the floor. I think that is if you use a baseball stat, like just a WAR stat, like just an average NBA guy in that place instead of Deuce. I think the Knicks are better. My thing with Deuce is, and I know I say this a lot, and I'm not banging on Deuce because I like Deuce a lot as a personality, as a leader for the team. But if the Knicks are constantly looking for a ball handler every summer, all year long, we have these conversations about who is the other guy, and we have Deuce, then what is Deuce doing here? Like if we're constantly looking for Deuce McBride's replacement, like we're constantly looking for a Cameron Payne or Alec Burks or a Jordan Clarkson or
because Deuce is not a point guard.
The dread guy, the
DeLon Wright.
Yeah, if we're celebrating the arrival of a DeLon Wright, why is Deuce here? Right? Because it can't be for the 3-point shooting because it's this year was 37, one year it was at 40, and then the two other years it was at 28. Right? And it can't just be for defense because 6'2" guard that can't score and can't shoot threes can't be just a defender only, because ideally we'd like for that defender only to be a 6'7", 6'8" guy that can shoot threes at a decent clip and spread the floor. So it's incumbent upon Deuce McBride to come back as a new reinvented NBA player, somebody with elite level point guard handles, a guy that can get where he wants to get on the floor and finish at the rim, a guy that's going to be able to knock down threes at some clip over 40%. Because if it's not, the other factors that come along with a 6'2" wing defender doesn't overshadow the lack of offense from Deuce. Because if you're a 6'2" wing player, right, that's not a bucket or knock down threes at a high enough clip to outweigh the built-in disadvantage, we're always going to have this conversation every summer. Who is Deuce McBride's replacement as a ball handler?
But do you not see him as a undersized two more so than a point guard? But I do like your point that then if you're an undersized two, the fact that you undersized, then you better be shooting it at a pretty good clip. But I don't really see him as a point guard though.
But that's generally the height and weight size of NBA point guards. Right? And then the off-ball thing is even worse, because if you're off the ball and you don't score and you don't shoot insane enough to keep the defense honest, then you can't be off ball either. To me, the off ball thought of Deuce is worse than the on ball part thought of Deuce. Because if you're not, say for instance, he's on the court with Jordan Clarkson, and they trap blitz Jordan Clarkson because they know Deuce is not that guy. And then now you have Josh Hart filling that role, and now Deuce is 2 passes away off the ball. It's just a waste of roster spot and energy, and it makes the game harder than it should be for guys. If Deuce was a 6'2" point guard that could handle and do, because these guys are 6'2" walking into the league doing stuff that we've been wanting Deuce to do since he got here.
I think it's a very fair criticism to say that Deuce McBride can do more. Definitely agree with that. He can. But I think last year was a down year for him as a shooter, and a lot of that had to do with an inconsistent role. Tibbs was hot and cold on how much he was being used and how on ball he was in that role as well, trying to figure out the best rotation between him and Cam, and then the Brunson injury compounded that, and then trying to integrate DeLon Wright as well. I think Deuce didn't really know what his role was, which affected his confidence. But in my opinion, Deuce is maybe the best or second best movement shooter on this team between him and Brunson to me, when the ball is in their hands. Not catch and shoot, but movement. On ball, he's exceptional. The previous year, before the one last, I thought he was the best shooter on the team. He was absolutely elite. We've also seen his mid-range game, the push shot, the pull-up J improve year over year as well, and him become more confident. I looked at an art type like Andrew Nimhard. To me, a 6'4", undersized two-guard. If Deuce can be that and be more chaotic now, playing the passing lanes or guarding the point of attack, forcing turnovers, and getting more buckets in transition, getting out and pushing the pace, more than any other player on the roster, I think that benefits Deuce McBride more than anybody else. It's us increasing our pace, increasing our transition attack, and making an effort to really get out and run and outpace other teams, which is almost absolutely going to happen under Mike Brown based on the type of roster we have and what he did in Sacramento. I think we're going to be a much faster team, which is going to make Deuce way more effective. Now you have to guard him differently. You really have to play transition defense because he might not be a playmaker when the defense is set, but in transition, he can make that extra bounce pass or pocket pass or zip pass up ahead to someone to score on an easy layup or even a lob opportunity. So I think Deuce does need to show that there can be opportunities where Brunson's off ball and he's dictating things. It maybe is a first or second option within a set, but I really think what he's done so far, he just needs that role expanded and trusted to be a starter. And if he's playing with those four guys, Bridges, Cat, OG, and Brunson, it's going to be real hard for him not to also raise his level of play as well.
I hope you're right. I'm not very high on Miles McBride. I hope you're right. And I see the advanced stats. I get it. But I think it has to be more than just the team is better when you're on the floor. I think you also have to knock down shots when you get that opportunity. I think, to Freezy's point, when he first came into the league, everybody was super excited. I wasn't. You're a point of you're a good defender. Okay. If you're gonna last in this league, you gotta be more than that. You either gonna be a good defender and a good to great shooter. You're gonna be a good defender and can handle the point guard responsibilities. It can't just be that you're a good defender. Now, as time went on, his shot picked up. I was super encouraged the year before last. When he started knocking down shots, I think I read a stat where he had the second or third best gravity, on the team. I think all of that is great. I think all of that is great. I'm not super excited about Deuce McBride starting. Yeah, I'm just not. And I get the advanced stats, and let's see. Hopefully his handle is better. I think it got better last year. I saw him, bringing the ball up against pressure, and he didn't look like he was struggling as much as the year before. So you see him getting better incrementally. But he was a second round pick. Honestly, I see Deuce as a bench player. I don't really see him as a starter in the league. And I think if the Knicks have to start him, it's just because they don't have anybody else that can fill that role. That's just my, opinion on that. And I really hope he proves me wrong. I hope that he gets in that starting lineup. He shoots lights out. He defends. He, attacks the closeout, hit his mid range, draws defense, hits other players, and really open up his game. If he does that, I think that's going to be great, great for the Knicks. But, you know, I think he's starting, or he would start, because the Knicks just don't have another shooter with size on this team to fill that role. I think he would just start out of necessity, and no disrespect to the on-off numbers last year. And it was a pretty good sample size. I'm not, no disrespect to that, but I hope I'm totally wrong. And I'll be the first one to come here and be like, look at Deuce McBride, you know? But I just don't see him as that type of player. I think his ceiling is limited, in my opinion. I don't see him as a high ceiling player at all. Jeff, any thoughts?
I think when it comes to Deuce, his contract tells the whole story. If you're expecting to have a 6'7" guy who can shoot the three and do all the things that Freezy's talking about for $4 million a season, that player isn't out there. Not even on a rookie contract, I don't think. That'd be the only exception. If you had an exceptional, like late first round pick, mid to late first round pick, that would be your guy. But he doesn't make starters money. He's a reserve. I think Lee makes an excellent point just based upon the personnel that we have. You can start him in that lineup and create some advantages probably. But even then, I don't think Lee is advocating that we close with that lineup. Right. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that would be, to start the game, to 5 out, to do some other things. But I don't think any of us here have a closing lineup really with Deuce on the floor, unless you just, need to get a stop and you want to take Brunson out, sub him offense for defense, something like that. Then maybe you could see him on the floor. But, Deuce is who he is. He's an imperfect player. He's not a point guard. And I think that's part of the issue that Freezy has with him. And that's legitimate criticism. But I also think that we're at our best when he can guard 94 feet and do some things that the rest of the roster doesn't really do. And so he's kind of unique in that aspect. And for what he does, what frustrates me the most with him, Freezy, is his shooting inside the arc. I don't know how many times last year he went hard to the rim on a fast break only to get the ball blocked and a turnover the other way to a three-pointer. I think that happened like once a game, it felt like, especially in the playoffs. Like he was so bound and determined to turn somebody into a poster, and it just wasn't there. So I would much rather him play within himself and kind of stick to the stuff, be a catch and shoot player, take advantage of those opportunities, and not I don't need him to expand his game a whole lot. I think if he could just focus on knocking down those catch and shoot threes and play that point of attack defense for 94 feet, then he has a role on this team for 20 minutes a game. And, for a $4 million guy, if you're getting 20 minutes a game out of him, I think that's good value. If you're relying on him for 36 minutes a game, then that would be a problem. But that's not going to be the case with the Knicks unless Brunson is hurt and he just, slides into that point guard spot because Mike Brown thinks he needs him there. But I honestly think that Jordan Clarkson would probably be more likely to see those minutes, and because I just think that he has more of a playmaker skill set than Deuce does. I mean, I don't think that's really questionable. But, Deuce
I think that's
has
fair.
his skills, he has his talents, but he's not a starting player in the NBA, and his contract pretty much says that.
But I think that's fair. So so this is just me. Whenever somebody talks about starting, I'm thinking 35 minutes. Right? So yeah, so if you're saying that, this is the start, so we can start at, 5 out, but in terms of his minutes, it's still gonna be like 25 minutes. I think he averaged 25 minutes um last year, then that's fine. Like when in my mind, when you say start, I'm thinking like, okay, I mean the starters usually play what 30, 35, 35 minutes a game. The other thing I want to say is people keep talking about a value contract. I don't really think in my opinion, Deuce McBride is on a value contract. I mean, you think about guys that you can get on who are priced out in the NBA, like guys that you're getting on a on a minimum contract just because of the way the CBA is. There's still good guys out there that you're getting on a minimum contract. Now, you would have to get one of those good minimum guys every year. But in my opinion, for what, $5 million, in my opinion, I think you can get just as good or a better player than Deuce McBride on a minimum.
You could have traded for Cam
And
Whitmore. Cam Whitmore makes less.
in my opinion, I just don't see him as a high ceiling guy, and I maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think he has to be a high ceiling guy when he's ostensibly the fifth option, right, on this team. If he's a starter, he's an excellent, maybe even elite fifth option, which is what he would be offensively. I don't need him to be any more than that. If he's giving us 9-10 points a game on 39% shooting from three, low turnover to assist ratio, to me, that's a
and point of attack defender, but he has to be the point of attack defender in that scenario.
Yes, for sure. And I think he would if Bridges has moved to the three. To me, that's an elite Deuce McBride season. I don't need that position to be a Ty Jerome or a DeAndre Hunter. I think Deuce McBride's perfectly fine at that. It's what is a defensive strategy? If you're switching, you present a lot of height mismatches then where guys don't even have to worry about him covering them because they have a foot or 8 inches or 7 inches shooting ability over him. When you decide the release is to a point to where Deuce can't even defend it. That's where I think it becomes a little cumbersome. But for the most part, as a fifth option on a championship team, I think he's more of it enough, personally.
Right. If I could just say one other thing, one of the things I wanted to speak to, adding Deuce McBride to the starting lineup doesn't automatically put us into that 5-out scenario. Like having 5 offensive guys doesn't always mean. In some cases, yes. In the Knicks case, adding Deuce, it doesn't give me the vibe that we'll be playing 5-out in a true 5-out sense. Will it give us the 5-out? I mean, the 5 offensive guy look, and I'm talking about on offense because I know with Deuce playing, we'd basically have 3 two-way guys on the floor. But on the offensive side, I think it gives us more of a spread offense where guys may have more driving lanes and spot up shots, but we won't get the pre-anticipated passes and slashing that a traditional 5-out offense will give you, where a guy is always going to replace the cutter. When the cutter evacuates a place, somebody occupies the place, and you see the perpetual motion in a 5-out offense, where in a spread offense, if you consider what James Harden ran in Houston, where 5 guys were basically and 5 guys were basically in a starfish offense where they constantly had 15 to 18 feet between each other, where one defender was always in a jeopardy gap. Like if he overcommitted one way, you could crash and there would be either a 3 or a dunk at the rim, right? 3 in the dunk thing. If we add Deuce, that would mean, and I'm not saying that he can't do it. What I'm saying is I just hadn't seen it yet, right? Because if you go back to the point that I was making about what this team looked like under Tom Thibodeau versus what it looked like under Mike Brown, I already went through the Tom Thibodeau car wash. Like all the Tibbs stuff is gone. I'm in the Mike Brown era of Knicks basketball, right? I just don't see a world where Deuce McBride reads the floor and throws and trusts anticipatory passes to cutters in between bodies on the floor, which means, we probably can't be in that 5-out scenario because you have to trust that cutters are going to get to the place where they intend to be. And you have to also trust that the guys that are going to replace them didn't have an offensive lapse and didn't replace the cutter, right? Whether on either side of the ball, whether it's your center, your big man coming up top just to show fake DHO, gets the ball or comes up to show that he's getting the ball and then occupies another space on the floor. I don't know if that's a lot, Geoff. That's a lot, bro. I don't. Yeah, I think if Jordan Clarkson was in that space, I think I could believe it. But with Deuce, I think Deuce is more of the stationary hub that's gonna, if he catches it and he's open, he's gonna shoot it, and I don't mind that. it's just a different conversation, I think.
The only thing I will say is when Hartenstein was here, or Hartenstein was here, they had a, Deuce would cut backdoor off of, and get nice passes from Hartenstein, and would be able
And
to
Obi.
finish. So yeah. So I mean, maybe again, that's in his game. We'll see. We shall see. And listen, we're talking about Miles McBride from last year. We don't know what he's working on this year, and what
Yeah.
who he's going to be, in the season coming up. Yeah.
As long as I don't hear Mike
Yeah.
Brown say we're going to get that boy right.
Yeah. Right. As long as
Hey,
we don't hear that, man, I'm good. Hey,
PTSD, bro.
Yeah.
Man.
All right. Any last words? Thank you for that, Freezy, for that. Yeah, the McBride conversation. Um, any last words?
I have a couple. Lee, thank you for coming on board and joining the panel. It really was a pleasure. Your writing skills are excellent. I'm a writer myself, so I appreciate good work when I see it. So keep up the good work. It's really good to see someone who I learned of through these spaces kind of get on the national stage as a writer is pretty cool. So big ups to you and continued success in your writing journey. It's fun to see good people get to the top. Freezy, same goes for you, my guy. Always a pleasure. You had some wild takes, in my opinion, tonight, but that's part of the fun, and you always get
We're
me
all different, brother. We're all
things a
different
way.
experiences, man. We're gonna have different opinions based on where we come from and what we've seen. So,
Amen.
yeah. And also, just to Jeff, real quick, bro, you got to embrace this Knick celebrity, brother. You have a lot of fans out here, bro. You have a lot of fans out here, man. That's a fan of your stuff, and so, man, just embrace it, man. I appreciate what you're doing with BK Steph, man. This is an excellent product that y'all put out, and we look forward to seeing y'all more. I don't know why y'all don't do more stuff. I'm thinking like 8 days a week, bro. Y'all got 8 days a week on the calendar? No, not the conventional calendar. Okay, all right. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, parting words. Appreciate y'all having me on. It's been an honor. I love my KOT team is my family, but outside of them, I find it hard to find people who can teach me something or even have that point of view to want to teach and expand and give their knowledge and their expertise. And this panel is a great example of 3 people who do that, with great bounty and freeness, which I really appreciate. Uncle Freezy is one of my favorite people, someone who's given me a platform, someone who's helped me out. I got much love on someone who's taught me a lot about the game of basketball. And then Stephanie and Geoff, there is so much TikTok brain rot out there, man. You don't have to go out in search of low IQ basketball talk, and you do have to try to really search and put an effort to find the high quality intellectualism of this channel. You two are great examples of that, and I really hope that you produce more content and find more ways to get your ideas and your voices out there into the ether. Because I agree with Uncle Freezy. I think the fans are really thirsty for really high level basketball talk, and not just high level, but a platform that's very egalitarian, that really positions each person to have their point of view, be able to support their point of view, have different. I liked how you push back against Uncle Freezy. Yeah, he's a guest, but if you disagree, don't do so in a respectful way that challenges his point of view and that breeds conversation. We all kind of get an opportunity to see how our personal biases, as Uncle Freezy references, can impart our knowledge on a game and come to an understanding with other people's point of view. So both of y'all do it extremely well. And also, y'all have very good chemistry as well. Steph and Geoff. That's something I think is a very underrated part of this channel. And I love being able to hop on YouTube and seeing you guys are live. I'm always tuning in. But KOT sends their love. We've got to have you guys on the channel for sure.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. This has been a really good night for me. I'm happy that I scrolled through the chat and saw that you wanted to come on, because sometimes I miss it. It was a pleasure having you on, Lee, first time. Just your insights, um, what you do on KOT, like I said, what you do writing, even your post. on X. I'm not on X too much because it just gets it's sometimes it can be too much. But you know your posts are always on point. Freezy, you already know. I appreciate you stopping by. The support behind the scenes has been incredible. When I first started this channel, one of the first ones to reach out to me. Um, so what you gonna do? How you gonna make yourself different? How you go? Just the conversations we have. I appreciate you. And Jeff came from the chat and elevated the level of this show. Jeff and I will be doing post game shows unless he's changed his mind. Um, the next day during lunch. So 30 to 45 minutes max during lunchtime. I'm really looking forward to getting back into that groove. The chat, the replay gang, those who leave comments, the silent listeners, we appreciate you. And just the entire content creation, the Knicks content creators, man. It's just a big community, and it depends on what you want. It depends on what you want. You're gonna be able to find it amongst the content creators. And I always say there's no need to stop by and leave negative comments. When you go to a Chinese buffet, you don't get upset that they got shrimp, egg foo young on the buffet menu, right? You just move on to the beef and broccoli. And I think it's the same thing here in the Knicks community, right? No need to be negative about it. Just move on to the content creators that give it up the way you want it to be. Give it up. And it's a lot of us. So Jeff, Uncle Freezy, Lee, I appreciate you all. Until next time, family. Jeff, take us on out because you know.
Yes, ma'am.
Sister, you're one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's her.
shine. Don't so,
Where you at? Where you at?
don't so,
Where you at? Where you at?
don't so,
What?
don't so.
What?
You're